Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Katie Ashman, and I work on the marketing department here at Opengov, and I assist with the webinar program. Today, we are going to be covering permitting and licensing, data talks, paper walks, modernizing permitting and licensing workflows to serve your growing community. And before we jump in, I just wanted to give a huge shout out and thanks to Nexity for partnering with us on today's webinar. Today, we do have two speakers joining us, Dean Simpson, the Manager of Development and Code Services at Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania, and Tom Crosby, the Solutions Engineer here at Opengov. So Tom, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. And yeah, before we get started with today's discussion, I just wanted to give everyone a brief overview of the Opengov ERP Cloud. And though today we'll be focusing specifically on the citizen services suite of tools for permitting, licensing, planning, and codes, and more, the Opengov ERP Cloud allows governments to drive efficiency and visibility with the only modern cloud ERP designed specifically to meet the needs of local government. So the ERP cloud gives governments the ability to improve budgeting processes and align spending to strategic outcomes with our industry-leading budgeting and planning suite. You can efficiently manage complex fund accounting standards and core financial processes with our proven financial suite, and drive increased revenue through better experiences with your constituents and Opengov's citizen services, which is what we're going to be specifically focusing on today. And all of this is underpinned by our centralized reporting and transparency platform, which dramatically simplifies data management and visualization, as well as sharing internally and with the public. So when you combine all of this functionality with our focus on innovation and customer obsession, the Opengov ERP Cloud is a major market event for digital transformation in local government. So what we've heard over the course of the pandemic from governments that we've been working with, more than a third of governments report that permitting and licensing fees have been negatively impacted during the COVID-19 crisis. And at least a third have launched or expanded their digital permitting, planning, licensing, and codes operations during COVID. And then finally, more than 50% of governments report to us that they have initiatives to move more of their digital services online. And so today, the key points that we're going to be covering, to Katie's earlier point, is as suggested by the title of the discussion, are, one, why manual paper-based processes underperform in today's world, and two, how to achieve real efficiencies from updating to a digital process. And so with that, I'd like to start the discussion here. And Dean, could you tell us a little bit about the importance of economic development for Cranberry Township?
Sure, Tom. Economic development here in the township drives basically everything that we do. Our board of supervisors laid out a plan that indicated some of the services, including parks and libraries and amenities that we wanted to provide for our residents here. Part of that plan included the economic development of the area and the need to build more houses, as well as locate stores and non-residential locations for those residents as well.
Mm-hmm. And so what were you using prior to Opengov, and what did that look like from a workflow perspective?
We were using Munis, what was the permitting software that we were using prior to Opengov. I like to say it wasn't a broken system. It was a bit antiquated. It was obviously paper-based with paper applications. And we had staff members doing a lot of data entry, a lot of manual processes there, but we did make it work for us.
Right. And yeah, I remember when kind of going through the initial evaluation of Opengov, Cranberry Township really did have a lot of processes really fleshed out, which was super helpful from a deployment perspective, but we'll get more into that later. So curious, what was kind of the impact of COVID on the way your team worked? I'm sure that you went through a lot of the same things that most communities did, but any information that you have to share there would be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we were impacted by the pandemic, and in particular, the shutdowns. We were required here in Pennsylvania to close our offices. Everybody had to work from home.
Hmm.
We were actually in the process of coming up with a digital solution. An online portal type system was something that had already myself and my team had been tasked with, trying to find that right solution.
Hmm.
When COVID-19 hit, it just really increased, or I guess decreased our timeline really. So we were given that objective by our township leadership that this needed to happen sooner rather than later.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, during that COVID-19, all those paper processes really kind of hit home. We were able to do some workarounds. We created some email addresses and accepted, scanned applications and plans and things like that. But
Hmm.
even from that point of view, we still had to have a way to get that scan, get the data into our permitting system. Again, a lot of intercommunication between departments, a lot of back and forth. We made it work, but it was inefficient at best.
Sure. So it sounds like there was a lot of kind of manual keying in of applications during that time.
That's correct. Yeah, a
Okay.
lot of data entry. I mean, every single part of that system, there was very little automation to it.
Hmm.
And even the customizing automation, was not something that we had the ability to do.
Right. And so you mentioned timeline before. So kind of curious, what was your process and what was the timeline ultimately when you did end up selecting Opengov Citizen Services for the project?
So we were we were kind of looking at, actually, I guess, over 2021, to find the solution, implementation, and be live. 2022 was the goal. It was supposed to be a 2021 project that we were in the planning phases of in
Hmm.
2020. When COVID-19 hit, we were told again by our leadership that this needed to be a top priority. So while I still think we did a lot of planning activities, it took a lot of time, from my time as well as our staff time, to get all those workflows set out. We ended up selecting Opengov, I believe it was in November. We
Hmm.
went live in May of this year, 2021. So November of 2020 to May 2021.
Right. Yeah, and again, they're really having those processes fleshed out, I think, was a huge help in that pursuit. So really, really impressive timeline. And so I know that the township is growing pretty rapidly. Can you talk a little bit about what challenges developers were facing, what kind of what they told you during that time?
Yeah, so I guess we have a big demand for housing units here, like I said, as well as commercial work, mixed use buildings as well.
Hmm.
We handle a high volume of permits, so we have inspectors that typically run about 10,000 inspections a year. We issue about 1,000 building permits,
Wow.
so those aren't even including the zoning permits and sign permits and those kinds of things that we handle as well.
Hmm.
One of the things that we heard from developers was just that time frame of getting things done and getting it back and ready to go. It really is difficult. If a township building's only open 8 to 5 during the week,
Right.
there's no other off hours that they can do things. They actually, we, received some positive feedback about the email address system that we set up during COVID, because at least then, they could send something, even if it was 7 or 8 o'clock at night, they could send us an application.
Right.
It wouldn't get looked at till the next day, but at least they could get it in and they could kind of work around their schedule with it.
Hmm. And so you're seeing a lot more kind of out of that normal 8 to 5 range as far as submissions go?
Yeah, so we have some of the larger developers and home builders that we have here in the township use permitting services,
Hmm.
and so again, we got some great feedback from those companies, especially once we started up with Opengov. they some of those, we call them frequent flyers, some of those people gave us the best feedback we could get. And some of that was just putting in applications on Sunday evenings. You know, a lot of these permit technicians, they may have a 9 to 5, you know, typical type job, and they do these things as a side job for them.
Right.
So, you know, they're able to go in, get everything uploaded to us, and know that come Monday morning, you know, we're going to start our review process and be able to get it moving a lot quicker for them. In the past, with the paper-based system, you know, they may have dropped off a set of plans with an application, or maybe they emailed it or whatever it was, but it would be 2 to 3 days before it even hit my desk or our plan reviewer's desk.
Right.
Whereas now it's, you know, within you know, hours of us arriving on a Monday morning that it's getting that initial look at.
So it sounds like even at a baseline, you're cutting out like 2 to 3 days in the process from the outset. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and a lot of that was spent with data entry. You know, we had our customer service staff would do that data entry. You know, enter in those permits for us into the Munis software that we used. You know, so I guess the application, the paperwork would come in. Well, they're also handling, you know, utility billing and inspection requests and all these other different aspects of township business. You know, they really are kind of the front line of what we do. So they're handling a million other things, and sometimes that data entry got pushed back a little bit. And so, you know, like I said, it may be a day or two prior to it actually getting back here for a reviewer to take a look at it.
And so this is your file room here on screen.
That's the old file room.
That's actually the old file room. Okay. Well, glad to see that we're moving away from that. At least it looks.
We're digitizing everything, so we are in the process of doing that now.
Looks a little tough to find your way around in there. So yeah, now you know, maybe we can kind of shift gears and talk about, you know, your previous state, right? And I'm curious, on the next slide here, we have kind of your old application process. So can you talk a little bit about your previous kind of standard next day inspection process and really explain for us what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so I actually, we created this flow chart actually to show our board of supervisors, you know, the kind of typical life of a permit and what takes place, how many different people touch it. And really that's what we wanted to indicate here, you know, without going through and reading each portion of it. I mean, really, this is kind of what I touched on a minute ago, you know, the yellow, the customer service part, you know, the application would be dropped off at the counter. The customer service representative would need to enter the data into our system, and they would actually create a folder, a project folder, you know, which would be a physical file folder that we would use for that permit. You know, we color coded depending on the type of project and things like that. So again, we had a system we were using and it was working well for us. But you know, from there it would come back to the codes group, plan reviewer, depending on who it was and what type of project it is. So at that point, then that initial review begins. So, you know, our customer service reps aren't, you know, experts in what's required by code or what's required for an application to be submitted. So, you know, 2-3 days later, we would get to take a look at it and, you know, potentially then turn around and contact the applicant because maybe we're missing information. So, you know, we could have told them that 2 days ago had we had the opportunity to, but our code staff would, you know, review all the plans, obviously stamp everything as needed. We would manually enter in permit fees. You know, we've implemented a number of different fees here in the township that can vary based off of locations for transportation impact and recreation fees and things like that. So that was all a manual process where we would actually enter that information in. We would, you know, save the red line files or the plans that we had. When we started moving towards digital and accepting plans via email, we were actually printing out a copy. So we were doing almost a digital plan review and then printing out 2 copies, one for us and one for the applicant, you know, provide a placard. And then from that point, we would have to then take it back out. We had a basket out front. We would provide the ready to go permit in the basket. Our customer service representatives would then have to, you know, make a phone call to let the applicant know that the permits were ready, let them know what the fees are. the person would need to come into the office or mail us a check, pick up the placard and the inspection list and all those kinds of things. Once that permit was issued, again, now it's coming back to my department. So there's a lot of back and forth there. And so that's the last red portion here on the right. The inspection process, we would receive a inspection request that came in through our customer service group. They would take a phone call, schedule the inspection. We have an administrative assistant back in the codes group here that would physically print out that list of inspections for the next day for each inspector, have to go through and pull the physical file folders, and they would take that out in the field with them. I think I told you, Tom, at a few points in time, we have such a high load of inspections. We have bankers boxes that these guys would use to fill up their with all those project folders, and that doesn't even count the rolls of plans and things that they would need to keep in their vehicle. Right. For all of those different projects. So yeah, kind of moving through there. Once all those inspections were completed, and we were able to issue the certificate of occupancy. Then at that point, then we would file the file folder in the property file room. So yeah, so it was a long process, and there was paper involved each step of the way. Each one of those inspections that would get scheduled had a piece of paper that was printed along with it, inspection notes that were included, those kinds of things.
I mean, I got a lot of questions there. I'm sure folks that are listening in are probably commiserating with this experience, especially if they haven't moved off of a paper-based system yet. You mentioned the basket. I'm curious, was that kind of like your contactless placard delivery system, or?
No, that was well before COVID. That was just how we did it. Again, with the the role that customer service plays and the nature of their job, they are not sitting there waiting for work to be done, right? So there's constantly people coming into the office, with questions, and they need garbage tags, they need to pay their utility bills, whatever it might be. It's constantly people in and out. And so with our old process where they were, and the reason they notified the applicant and the fees, and collected fees, well, because they collected the fees, they notified the applicant and told them, what that would be. So, if somebody wanted to pay over with a credit card over the phone, they were able to take that payment right then. So that was why, that world lived in their area. But really, it was the basket was here's the next thing that needs done. And so the customer service people, when they had a 2 seconds available, they would grab those folders and start making phone calls and letting people know their permits were ready.
Got it. And so, I mean, it sounds like the file folder was changing hands multiple times. And I know that you had some folks that were close to retirement, at or around the time of COVID. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I know that you had some stuff that you wanted to share around that.
Well, so, we did have, I guess part of the process or part of the decision making from our leadership was, if we could try to streamline this process that's you're seeing on the screen, if we could try to streamline that into a single department, or, at least limit, some of the steps along the way that a different department was responsible for. By limiting that, we had some people retire when COVID hit and everybody went home. They decided they weren't coming back, and I couldn't blame them at the time. I was happy for them. So that led to the idea that, hey, if we can streamline this, keep it within the codes group, then some of those customer service reps, we don't need to backfill their positions. We're removing a big chunk of their workload and, shifting it back into our department.
Awesome. And you mentioned a couple of times kind of those physical roles of plans. Has anything changed about the way that you manage plans kind of in the new state, which we'll get to in just a few minutes here?
Yeah, so we don't accept any paper plans at this point in time. So, especially on large I say any, I should give a caveat there. If we have a resident that comes in that's, maybe not technologically savvy or something like that, we'll help them out. We'll scan their plans into our system and help them out in that way. But particularly on the non-residential side, commercial projects, we do not accept any paper plans, rolls, anything like that.
Mhm.
During COVID, we actually made that decision that we were going to, completely shift away from that. Our leadership here is great. They supported us throughout that time. We were able to get iPads, so we went ahead and got those set up for the guys. We were using, we had internal servers here at the township that were housing the plans for us, and we were able to connect those. I'm not the tech guy, but we were able to connect the iPads into our servers, and so they were able to access that while they were out in the field.
Okay.
So yeah, but so that was even before COVID or before Opengov, but
Mhm.
with Opengov, it's just kind of streamlined that even more. So we're still only accepting digital plans. Everything's coming in. We're
Mhm.
doing our plan review that way. Stamping everything, and then supplying that stamped and approved set back to the applicant as well. All without printing anything typically.
Mhm. And so what are you doing from a digital plan review perspective today? Are you doing any kind of physical manual review anymore, or is that all moved online as well?
So yeah, we use Bluebeam Review to
Okay.
do those reviews. So that gives us an opportunity. Like I said, the state of Pennsylvania requires that when we perform a plan review, we have to physically add a stamp to each page that says we
Mhm.
reviewed it. It meets the building code. And so we use Bluebeam Review to manage that process. We have stamps created for each one of our plan reviewers. They're able to go through and stamp those pages, throughout that process.
Awesome. And so you've got that now fully integrated with Opengov Citizen Services. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that's going for you?
Yeah, that's been great. We were using Bluebeam prior to
Oh, okay.
Opengov, but that was one of the items we had on our checklist. That was one of the things that we were looking for.
Mhm.
There are other plan review softwares out there. Bluebeam is what I learned on, and so I was hesitant to switch from anything away from that. So that integration was something that we were looking for.
Mhm.
And Opengov has that integration. So, we're able to use the sessions feature in Bluebeam with the connection through Opengov. We're able to open up those plans, do a review, complete everything. You hit the finish session button, and it's magically appears over on the Opengov side, and everybody has
Wow.
access to it. So yeah,
Very
works
cool.
out very well.
And so sessions being, having multiple reviewers, collaborating simultaneously do I understand that correctly?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
and we actually don't use that feature, but that is available. We typically with our
Sure.
projects, we usually have one person kind of handling the process throughout.
Got it. So yeah, I guess now let's kind of move on to what the current state looks like today now that you are using Opengov Citizen Services. So I guess my first question there would be, what are some of the biggest productivity or transparency improvements that you've seen since moving over to Opengov Citizen Services?
Yeah, I would say the big thing is, we're able to turn around permits, in a day at times. I mean, really,
Wow.
everything's a little bit different. Every day is a little bit different. We do. We're constantly putting out fires is what we say. We're constantly helping people, answering questions, whether it's a contractor or a citizen.
Mhm.
So we're constantly doing those kinds of things. So I'm not going to say we get every permit done in a day, but we're able to, and that's kind of the big thing. So this slide is really illustrating how that process was streamlined. And our customer service folks are great, so I always hesitate to say we've eliminated them from this process, because we really haven't. They're still that front line. When people come to the counter and ask questions, they're still there to answer those questions,
Mhm.
or get us if they need help with whatever it is. But as you can see here, we've really streamlined that process. So basically the applicant, the person putting in the permit request, is doing that data entry portion of it for us. And whether they're doing that late at night one night or over the weekend, they're able to do that at their leisure. Whenever we receive that application, we have our fees automatically generated. We've used our location flags through Opengov to automate that process, kind of like I mentioned earlier, where that was a manual thing. We actually had to go in and make sure we were adding those fees in correctly.
Right. Yeah.
All those things are now automated based off a location within the township. So that has made my job a lot easier. It's tough to call somebody and tell them you charged them the wrong fee and they need to write you another check. And I have done that before.
Right.
So it's not a fun phone call to make. With Opengov, we're able to, streamline that. Like I said, it's an automated process. My staff here, again, very good. My plan reviewers work very hard. They still verify that all those fees are correct. One of the things I really like about Opengov is that, if they find something that's wrong and they let me know, I have the ability to go in and fix it myself. And maybe there's a condition that's incorrect, or, a fee that's not being charged appropriately. I'm able to go in and correct that process on our end. So it's really made that portion of it a lot less stressful for us. But kind of moving along here on our chart, we're collecting our fees electronically. We're supplying those red line stamped drawings back to the applicant electronically, and then they are actually the only piece of paper that's being printed throughout the process is the actual permit that they display at the job site. And so we give them a heads up to print that out, make sure they have it there, and they can display it at the job site. So that's going through that issuance process and payment process. We get into the inspections. We are we're trying to get everybody to do it online. That's been a little bit of a challenge. I mean, everybody's used to it. We've had construction here in the township for years and years and years, and I'm sure there are people that have our phone number saved in their phone, and they're hesitant to switch up how they do it.
Right.
But we're getting people there, and so we've had a lot less phone calls coming in. We actually have it down now where our administrative assistant here in the codes group is answering all those inspection calls and scheduling all those inspections for us, anything that comes in. So again, we've been able to kind of remove that responsibility away from our customer service reps who are dealing with walk-ins all day. Now they're able to focus on other things, and we have our staff back here able to schedule that and manage that workload. And she's been very good at it. We haven't had many issues at all.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we talk a lot about here internally, when we're sharing our software with folks around the country, is the fact that both telephone inquiries as well as email inquiries as well as walk-ins are decreasing. Are you seeing folks actually using the in-app chat functionality to communicate any issues or needs for change on applications?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. So, in our processes that we set up, every application that gets submitted, we call it an application review. That's part of our workflow. And so through that process, we're checking for permits, or submittals to be administratively complete. And so that's one of our code's administrative assistant. That's one of her duties. So she's able to actually go through real quick, check and make sure that we have at least, what we need to begin that review process. And she'll, send a note to somebody if they're missing something. Maybe they're missing a survey or something that they need from or for us to be able to do that review. Before it ever even gets to the plan reviewer's desk, she's able to go ahead and let them know, hey, we need this before we can move on. And so we send that communication through the Opengov, through the chat, and then people respond to us through there as well. So, oh, yep, forgot about it here. I just attached it for you. And then she's able to process that on through so that it gets to the plan reviewer. So yeah, we use it quite a bit. It hasn't entirely taken the place of phone calls,
right?
And I don't know that you could ever get rid of entirely of phone calls and emails and those kinds of things, but I do think it's decreased for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is that some things are easily, maybe even more easily communicated via text, but yeah, certainly some things do need to be communicated via telephone. So totally get that. But yeah, it must be a great feeling when you finally convert one of those, one of those stalwarts, one of those holdouts, get them over into the online system and start receiving those updates.
Sure.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and we have a local contractor that builds decks in our area. Great contractor, does a nice job, bit of a gruff personality. And so I knew, I kind of knew that it was working within the first week or so of us going live, that we received an application from him through the portal. We were able to complete the review. We were able to get payment. We were able to issue the permit and start doing inspections. And you didn't have much interaction with him. And it's if we can convert him, if we can get him to using the system, I really think we can get anybody to use the system. And that's what's been great about it. And like I said, he's a good guy. He's just a little gruff and rough to deal with at times, but
Right.
he was able to figure it out easily, and get his permits in and get everything issued, without having to deal with us. I think that's, what made him gruff at times. So
Yeah, that's like the typical contractor persona, right? They're a little gruff. That's kind of the way that they take on the world, but at the end of the day, they're usually really nice folks.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the process was like to implement the current state that we see on the screen, and what are some of the early results, I guess?
Yeah, so we did spend a lot of time, with that planning process. And like I said, we'd kind of already started that. So myself and one of the gentlemen that started off on the team for the software selection, he's actually moved down south. So he's working for another township now. But he is, we sat down and really mapped it out together and laid out what our workflows look like. Not just on the building permit side, but we did our land development team as well. The planning, land development, conditional use, zoning, all of those different processes. We sat down and really mapped those out. And we did that before we ever contacted any vendors. And I do think that really helped us with that selection process. The initial meeting with vendors is, it's a sales pitch, of course. So, we got the kind of high level shiny objects view of what the software looked like. And so, when we initially kind of, looked at that initial view of things, we were able to basically immediately turn around and say, all right, now here's our process. Show us this other thing. We don't want to see the shiny object. Show us how your system will work with our process.
Right.
How can it work for us? Where are our inefficiencies? We knew where our inefficiencies were because we had done that pre-planning, but we were, curious what the vendors are going to tell us our inefficiencies are, and where the vendors can make it better for us.
Yeah. And I remember going through that process with you all. I forget at this point exactly which application it was, but maybe your planned unit development application. We built it all out and kind of reviewed it together. I remember that feeling like a real turning point and a very happy moment. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of to that end, I'm curious, are any, you use the shiny objects term a couple times, but what are other departments saying? Is anybody kind of jealous at the efficiencies gained so far? Maybe jealous is the wrong word, but are they looking to kind of repeat and reproduce some of your processes?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually, our project started off as, codes, planning and development. You guys go find a software that works for your department. Throughout the process, through implementation, especially, it grew. So, we implemented our customer service group. They issue lien letters. They were, implemented into this they were brought into it during the implementation process. I've heard great reviews from them about using the software and kind of the ease of use. As well as our engineering department, for road occupancy permits and, work in the roadway type of permits that they issue. And actually, I was in a meeting this morning with our sewer and water department that's, asking what they could use this for as well. And some of the tracking and analytic capabilities that are there.
Yeah, I saw that you guys were early adopters of some of the new point-based and segment-based functionality that we've rolled out recently. And I guess kind of the last comment I want to make on this slide, it strikes me, and math is not my strong suit, but on the previous slide, we saw maybe 15 days at the high end for total processing time, now down to 5 days in some cases. So kind of like a 66% reduction in some cases of total processing time. So that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's worked out well for us in that sense. Not everything's perfect when it comes in, so I don't want to say we have an average time, but whenever we get that completed submittal, we can turn it around in a day, and we have,
Right.
really depending on the workload. But yeah, I mean, we're down to around 5 days, kind of typical for a project.
That's awesome. And so, yeah, I guess moving on, to talk a little bit about process and best practices. Dean, maybe at this point you're something of an expert on process. No pressure, but so I guess, like, what are some of the skills that you look for, when you're thinking about aligning technology adoption and new workflows?
Yeah, so kind of like what I was saying earlier with the planning, I really think that was very important for us, was understanding what our workflow was. We have skilled staff. We have people that have been here for a long time. So, you have a process, and nobody ever wrote it down, right? And
Right.
so we really needed to write that process down to understand fully what we were doing. From the technology side of things, we knew people would get on board. I mean, if we really are making their jobs easier, which I believed at the time that we were, and believe that we have at this point, people got on the bus. They were ready to go with us once they kind of saw what it was willing to do. Like anything, we have some of our staff here is not the most technologically savvy people.
Right.
You end up, you need to take a little extra time, do some extra training with them. I have a fantastic IT department here with the township as well. So I was, given a project manager from the IT department to help me with some of the training aspects, make sure everybody was, up to speed. Of course, there's also the kind of integrations of, we have an iPad, and now we're also using this new software. So we had to have people get used to using the iPad, as well as getting used to using the software. That would be for like our field folks. But again, there was struggles. There's been some hiccups. We've had a few, issues along the way, but it hasn't been anything we can't overcome. And it's all been, training. We just needed to provide more training. We needed to make sure people were a little more comfortable with it. That would be the one thing I would say if I was redoing the process, was I'd do more training for people.
Sure.
That part of it was just, let's get it going. Once it's up, we'll figure out what people don't know. And I think we could have done a little bit better job with getting in front of people and making sure that they understood a little bit better, how the process would change with the new software.
Yeah, and I heard you say something interesting in there. The whole aspect of writing it down, and I think that's one thing that a lot of communities don't. It's kind of an unintended benefit when they go into a project like this. Is you're really creating institutional knowledge, and to the end of getting folks trained up, they sort of have a visual roadmap of what's going to be expected of them, like when they do move into a new role. So pretty interesting there. So any changes that occurred as a result of adopting new digital workflows from a team's perspective at all? I know that we talked earlier about cutting down on some of the multiple touches there, but anything else to share on that front?
So we were kind of like what I said. We had our IT department supplied us a person, but on the, I guess on like the planning side of things and getting the software implemented, one of the things we knew with our compressed timeline was, that it was going to take me a lot of time. And so we had to devote that time. It was discussed throughout our staff and our, department here that, everything that could be handled without me needed to be handled that way, so that I would be able to devote that time to implementing, the software.
Sure.
We do have currently we have an open inspector's position. I still would like to fill it, but I don't know that we will at this point. I don't know that it's justifiable. We've been able to increase the efficiency of our inspectors well enough that we may not need to backfill that position. So that's one of
Wow.
the perks from our upper management, of course, that are always looking at that bottom line in the budget. So that's something that they are intrigued by. So, we're working through that now. I've attempted I'm trying to pitch the idea to them that, we could still have that person come in with our new technology. We would be able to implement other processes. We could potentially
Right.
bring in additional licensing requirements and things like that
Mhm.
that could, not only, allow us to hire another inspector, but could also improve the township. I mean, we would be able to offer, a better service to the township, require contractors to be registered, make sure that they have training, do those kinds of things that,
Yeah.
a lot of cities have, but, in Butler County, Pennsylvania, it's not the norm here. And
Mhm.
so, with the township our size that's growing as quickly as it is, that's one thing that may be needed here.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's kind of cool. We've been doing a lot of work in Pennsylvania recently, and whenever we bring up Cranberry, everybody has a very high opinion of the township. So awesome to hear that you're continuing to improve on processes and even roll out additional services to the community. It's really awesome to hear. But
great
kind
to hear.
of going in a different direction, what's kind of the ongoing upkeep of the software post implementation? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's really been very minimal. And
Wow.
that's, I think, part of that is due to our planning. Part of that is due to our staff and our IT guys being able to get it set up well.
Right.
I would not have been able to do, some of the technological, side of things without having, a strong IT department, a great director there, and a good project manager that was assigned to me. So those two guys really drove the bus from that end of things, and it allowed me to focus on the process side of things. And so being able to build it out ourselves prior to go live, really understand how the software works, make it work for us, automate as much as possible. It really has made it quite simple. One of the things that we had with our old software was there, was always a lot of workarounds. And again, not to say that it didn't work, but, one of the
Right.
examples I give is, on our certificate of occupancy that we issue for a new home, we list the occupant. The new occupant, supplies us with an application so we can get their name, we can get their information. It helps with utility billing and other aspects here in the township. So that's something that's required for that occupancy.
Mhm.
Previously, and again, it was just a workaround. This was the way it worked. So when we would go in to put that name in there, you actually put it under a contractor form field in Munis, and that was just how it worked. So you needed to put this person's name into here that was listed as a contractor, but we all knew that wasn't really the contractor. That's the occupant, right?
Right.
And so now with Opengov, we're still able to collect that information. It comes to our administrative assistant here. She's still receiving that from the contractors, getting that application emailed to her, and she's able to go in and put it where it should be, which is under an occupant's name. So if we ever needed to pull that information up, it doesn't take an institutional knowledge to know that, hey, the contractor is actually the occupant. We're able
Right.
to list the information, we're able to run reports on it, and actually have good data there.
Mhm. And so, quick question about your go live. You were talking about moving quickly at once you've got that roadmap all sussed out. From your perspective, what are some of the benefits of moving quickly to a go live? I mean, you started your search in August of last year, and you went live in May of this year. What are some of the benefits of getting that process moving quickly, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the benefits were realized after the fact a little bit, right?
Mhm.
We may not have moved that fast had we not been given the push from our upper management. But being able to get it up and running, especially in summer, I was a little concerned, honestly, about doing it in the middle of summer, which is, you know, our busy season. We did reach out to kind of those frequent flyers, like I said before, and let them know that it was coming. But, you know, we were able to kind of seamlessly transition into that. You know, I guess the compressed timeline just, to me, if there's a goal, you know, you need a goal, you need benchmarks along the way. That's the only way to get people to do what they need to do. You know, that was, again, when we started bringing all these other departments in and the project started growing and growing, we really didn't want to change our deadline. You know, we still wanted to, you know, meet that deadline, get it live. You know, I had sat in a conference room with the township manager and told him if he wanted it done by, you know, August of this year, that I'd have it done for him. So I needed to make sure that I met that personal deadline that I'd set for myself as well. You know, so it was a bit of a stressful time. And like I said, we were able, you know, we needed to set aside time. I mean, there was days that I would spend 6 hours, you know, dealing with various meetings about implementation, about Opengov, getting the different departments set up, getting that training completed, all those kinds of things. You know, there were some long days and some long nights getting it done. But you know, that having that deadline and sticking to it, you know, when people would say, you know, well, when's this happening? And we'd say, well, you know, July or June, you know, they would go, oh, so we had to kind of, you know, we had to calm everybody down, but, you know, this is what we're doing. So everybody's got to get on board. You know, we're not pushing this thing back. Everybody get on board and we'll make sure it works right.
Yeah. And you made the comment earlier, I mean, multiple times at this point about, you know, have that upfront planning, being very strenuous, but then now that you're live, you don't really have to make too many changes. So really kind of curious if you could just dig a little bit deeper on your partnership with IT. I mean, who we obviously worked with extensively, you know, kind of upfront in the sales process as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that partnership looked like, you know, during the deployment specifically?
Yeah, so you know, part of the goal, you know, again, prior to COVID, you know, one of the reasons that we started looking at the online portal, you know, besides the kind of obvious things that we're going to give a better product to our residents and our customers, was eliminating on-site servers. So, you know, we wanted to move things to the cloud. You know, that was a directive from our township manager, as well as the IT director. And so, you know, they felt like for safety reasons, you know, for data safety reasons, that was important. You know, also actually right above my head is where our server room is, you know, so it takes real estate, right? And so, you know, to have servers on site, there's upkeep involved with it. There's staff time, there's contractor time, you know, you're paying people to come in to take care of these things. If it's something that, you know, staff can't handle. And so, you know, part of the goal with the project was to, you know, eliminate those on-site servers. We haven't eliminated them entirely, but we've done a good job. And as we go, as we kind of move forward and like I said, with our digitizing of our file room, you know, that's part of that process as well, is to, you know, get that information to a cloud and eventually link it with Opengov as well. So.
Sure. Yeah. And so curious there, what are you still using the servers for? Is it just like backing up all of that historical information for now, or?
Yeah, currently that's correct. Yeah. And we also, you know, there's a number of other departments, you know, our HR department uses a specific HR software, you know, customer service uses the utility billing and, you know, payment processing, those kinds of things.
Sure.
They're all, you know, kind of each department was tasked with, you know, looking into how to get this stuff off of our internal servers. So I do think we're kind of the first one to get there. And so they're seeing how this is affecting the IT world as well. They're kind of studying what's happening right now. So we also have a municipal golf course. So like even, you know, their software is on our in-house servers and things like that. So, you know, it's just across the board. Everything was housed here at the township. And then of course, you know, backups and backups to backups and everything else. So.
Geez, if only there were a modern cloud-based ERP for local governments.
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
Yep. So
No,
we're
just
getting
kidding.
there.
But also wanted to say it must have the benefit of keeping your office warm in the winter time. So
Yeah, actually, yeah,
keep it,
yes, and it's freezing in the summertime.
yeah.
Sometimes I have to open up the window. It's 90 degrees outside
Right.
because yeah, the air's pumping so hot,
Right.
so
Too
high up
funny.
there. Yeah.
So I know that we're coming up on time and really enjoying today's discussion, Dean. But wanted to talk briefly about results. And so what are some of the metrics that you've focused on most in kind of the first year of Opengov Citizen Services, and with regard specifically to your role?
Yeah. So, right there on the screen, it says that 10,000 inspections, 1,000 permits, with our mobile inspectors in particular, they're able to in the morning, they're no longer picking up those boxes. They're grabbing an iPad and walking out the door with it ready to go.
Wow.
It's also in the past, we try to provide a great customer service to the, people, the residents, the contractors as well. Sometimes people forgot to call in an inspection the day before. So they would call us first thing in the morning. Hey, can you fit me in or whatever it is. And that was actually a much bigger process than you could have, than somebody could have imagined, because all of those things, all those inspection reports had already been printed out. Everything was ready to go for the inspector. If the inspector was already out in the field when that phone call came in, it required one of our customer service folks would have to call the inspector, see if he could handle it. The
Right.
inspector would have to then come back to the township building, get the project folder, plans, whatever might be associated with that project, have that inspection sheet printed out for them so they'd be able to note everything on the report that they needed to note, and then back out in the field again. With this, we're still communicating. Of course, if I look at somebody's schedule and it's, packed, I'm still making a phone call to make sure one of the guys can handle it. But if they say yes, if they're able to handle it, then it's as simple as hitting the button, and then it shows
Wow.
up on their inspections. They're ready to go. They don't need to return to the township and get folders or pick up plans or anything like that. So that one, in terms of efficiency, to me has been key. I mean, that's been a big benefit, and it's a benefit to our residents and our customers, people that we deal with every day. I really think that they have latched onto it. And we've actually used, that same day inspection scheduling as a way to get people to use the online scheduling, to stop calling in, to get those. We started telling them, no, you got to put it in online. If you put it in online, we'll see if we can get to it. And so, that would just kind of get them used to using the system, and it's worked out well. Some of the guys that were really hesitant to give up making the phone call have started using the online request. And so we're able to, again, we don't guarantee that we can do it the same day, but
Right.
we try to do the best we can. And more often than not, we're taking care of those people's requests and giving them that strong customer service that we're about.
And it sounds like the inspectors themselves have kind of seen some agency return to their lives and their schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've gotten really good feedback from our inspectors. It's like anything else that's cloud-based. You need an internet connection. So that's always kind of the hang up. And we've had a few issues. We kind of know the areas around town that we have some connection issues. We've been able to deal with it. But really, other than that, these guys, they're, like I said, they're able to sort their inspections. They know where they want to go first. I have one of our inspectors uses the automatic routing feature.
Oh, wow.
The other guys like to do it themselves. So, they organize where they want to go for the day. They're able to walk in the door, grab a cup of coffee, grab their iPad, and they're out in the field, hitting the ground running every day. So
awesome. Well, yeah, at our kickoff conference internally for Opengov, I had the pleasure of seeing some of the early screens of the forthcoming mobile app, and I think you're going to be super excited when that rolls out.
I am excited about that one. I've heard a few things about it. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, wow. So I guess my last question here, as far as results, what are some of the other strategic areas that you're going to be focusing on as you look towards the future?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. We're looking at like contractor licensing,
Yep.
rental inspection programs. One of the things that, again, based on that Cranberry plan that was put out by our Board of Supervisors, and it's updated from time to time as well. They saw we have this huge potential for growth here, and eventually that growth is going to slow down. We're going to run out of property. We're not going to be able to build new homes. So, how are we going to continue to provide the best services in terms of our parks and our golf course and, all those kinds of things? How can we still provide that high quality service to our residents that make this a great place to live and where people want to move to? And so, those are some of the things that we're looking at. The budget may not decrease, over time. So we need to find a way that we're going to be able to continue to provide that. So, contractor licensing, rental inspections, like the Airbnb type inspections,
Right.
those
Yeah.
things as well. I mean, the sky's the limit out there. We currently have a fire prevention licensing program that we've had in effect for years now. We've shifted all of that into Opengov, and are able to issue licenses and, review inspection reports, take money, all those kinds of things, again, all digitally. So those are kind of the places that we're looking at now, to be able to do, keep things running at a high level for our residents in the future.
Sure. Well, due to the way that the world has been unfolding for the last year and a half, didn't have the pleasure of getting to come on site and meet you guys during the kind of the initial sales process or the deployment process, but Cranberry sounds like a lovely place, and I can't wait to come visit when the time is right.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Hopefully this stuff will get by us here soon. And I think Eric might owe me a beer or two already. So he's on the hook. So
for sure.
He's buying.
he's buying. That's right. Awesome. So wanted to just end here with a couple of frequently asked questions. And one of the ones that we kind of got leading up to this session, and we get all the time, quite frankly, is are governments actually using ARPA funds for these types of services? And I had the opportunity to reach out to Micah Intermill, who he was the former budget director for the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And, he actually was able to provide some context here. He's now internal on the Opengov side. He's working as a solutions engineer for our budgeting and performance platform. But he kind of said two things. So one, and, Dean, please tell me if this is commensurate with your experience, but he said, number one, the dollars that are associated with lost revenue replacement can actually be used for general government services, which specifically includes modernizing IT infrastructure to enhance cybersecurity. And kind of the reason I'm bringing this up is, you're talking about closing those server rooms. That's moving to the cloud in a nutshell. And then number two, dollars that can be used to run economic recovery programs, to the extent that those are permitting and licensing, and those are supporting economic recovery, they really do fit into the ARPA funding framework. So don't know if you have anything else to add there, but interested to hear if you do have any commentary.
So we did review the possibilities of using, some of the COVID funding for, our software. That was one of our initial plans, throughout the time, and actually applying for, and a lot of that stuff, happened above my head, of course, but they determined that we weren't going to use those funds for this project in particular, that those funds were better shifted somewhere else. But my understanding is that, yes, they would have been able to use it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And I guess just a couple more questions specifically for you, Dean. How did you go about vetting what is obviously quite a crowded marketplace, when you were thinking about moving permitting to the cloud?
Yeah, so we started on the internet, kind of Googling, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first starting point. When we initially all got sent home for COVID, I actually had a couple of our inspectors. Construction was actually closed down here in Pennsylvania for about a month or 2 months, I guess.
Mhm.
And so, they weren't able to go out and do inspections at that point in time. So we actually initially kind of assigned that to them. I said, make some contact with these people, get a couple of initial reviews done. And so they started that process. Construction started back up, and they handed me a few things and said, all right, this is all we got. So, I kind of took it from there, but I, continued along that process, reaching out to people, sending emails, making phone calls, those kinds of things. We set up that initial review or the initial demo with everybody and got that initial done, set up a matrix, kind of graded each one, determined which ones we liked the best, and then had those folks come back for a second round demo with us. And that second round, we really wanted it to show, well, kind of like what I spoke about before. The first demo is just going to be, what we described it as what they want us to see, right?
Right.
So hey,
Yep.
that's great, but whenever I tell you what I want to see, can you actually do that for us? And so we set up a number of different applications or different processes that we wanted to see. We provided our current applications to each one of the vendors. When we did that, we based those, requests or those demonstrations, we based them off of real life things that we have being developed here in the township. And we said, show us what it looks like when this happens. And so, from there, we had great response out of the three finalists for that process. And, what Opengov showed us was by far and away was the best one that we got to see. In particular, like I said before, because you guys were able to actually build it for us. I mean, that was a great selling point for us.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I had a lot of fun with that project. It's one thing to do the show you what we think you want to see bit, but when it comes to actually showing you what life could be like, that's really kind of the best thing about my role here. And then I guess finally, how do you get people to adopt a new system or a new process when they've, and I know that we've touched on this a couple times vaguely throughout the conversation, but how do you get people to, accept a new process when they've been doing something the same way for 20 years but sometimes more?
Is brute force an okay answer? No, we involved people. We really did. We tried our best to bring people to the table. Here's the process as I see it. Where do I have it wrong? And so, part of that was mapping those things out and kind of like what I was saying earlier, we had those maps, we had the kind of roadmap of what our process looked like. When we got to particularly in the implementation phase, now we got to sit down, we got to make sure customer service agrees with us, and there was a number of things that they said, hey, well, what about this? And well, I forgot about that because that's not part of my process necessarily. And so, really getting everybody to the table, making sure we understood all those things so then we could turn around and build it in the software, make sure that it's, accurate. And then again, having more meetings, right? We needed to bring them back to the table and say, all right, based on what we worked on last time, here's what we've come up with. Does this look right? And there was a lot of back and forth, right? And that's to be expected. There was a lot of, I forgot about this the last time we met. We need to get this part in there too. And of course, that can be frustrating for everybody, but I think people saw as we got further along, people saw the benefits of what we were doing as well. People saw the streamlining, when you're making somebody's job easier, it's real hard for them to push back on you. And I think people really started to see that, right? It started off as a big pain, and because it is, implementation is not a fun process. It is a painful one. But they saw what we were doing, what we were working on, and could see that, hey, they're moving in the right direction. And so, I would say, if you're looking to do something, whether it's Opengov or anything else, I mean, that communication, you got to get with people. You got to make sure that everybody's on board. You got to make sure that everybody understands the process the same way that you did. And that goes back to my earlier point that we haven't had to do a lot of tweaking. There's been a few minor things with this process. And that's because we had days where we had 6 hours worth of meetings with different departments and those kinds of things. So it really did pay off in the end, going through that process.
And and plus you staked your reputation on a May go live, and you hit it. So it
was August, but we made it in May. Yes. He said he wanted it done in a year. I said, okay, let's get it done. So we did.
Wow. So you beat your goal. That's amazing.
Absolutely. So
really cool.
It's been great for us. We've nothing but good things, really. So it's been a good thing for us.
Awesome. Well, any closing thoughts, Dean? Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to get to today?
I think we hit it all, Tom.
I would say so as well.
All right.
Well, again, Dean, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. Thought it was a wonderful conversation, and thank you everyone for watching. And if you are looking to move off of a paper-based system and consider a more modern digital approach, please do feel free to reach out. And thanks again.